Is there a bit of a risk of a brain drain of some of the better staff going if they're...
There is always that risk with this kind of change. We've got to lose a lot of people to get close to the headcount reduction target and the cost reduction targets. We have actually already lost quite a lot of people who've largely gone to other jobs within the NHS. So we can try to mitigate that as best we can, but people will do what they need to do for themselves and their families, and we've got to respect that.
And you talked about the issue earlier about the cost of redundancy. About how much is that, do we think, at the moment?
I can't tell you specifically because it is subject to a discussion with Treasury. That's very active and live at the moment, and there's various scenarios in that as well. I can tell you we've had over 3,000 applications for voluntary redundancy within NHS England. If we were able to cost all that fully, which is in process, that's a significant cost, but also with a really significant saving downstream as well.
And I guess the question is, is that coming out of the NHS budget or Treasury?
We're trying to make sure that it comes from our overall envelope over the spending review period, but we have a bit of flexibility over time in terms of the upfront costs versus when the savings are realised. Yeah. This will save a lot of money, so that's the key.
The estimate was like 500 million a year, right?
Yeah, that's changed a bit since the first process, and I say
or down.
I'm not going to get drawn on that. We're working on a range of scenarios with Treasury colleagues. Been very constructive discussion in recent weeks, and we'll be able to resolve it soon.
One of my favourite documents about the health service was the Institute for Government report into the Lansley reforms. Mm-hmm. So in 2012 they wrote that, and there's a key paragraph in it that I keep coming back to, which says that the 30,000 plus managerial jobs to go will in theory produce savings that over a few years will pay back the redundancy cost, which is obviously what we're hoping here. That assumes, however, that the managers' jobs will indeed prove redundant. In practice, commissioning groups and boards may well discover that they cannot do the job on the shoestring that they're being offered, so numbers will creep back up. Mm-hmm. That was said in 2012. That is, of course, what happened. Mm-hmm. Is there a risk of that happening here?
There's a risk, but we're all very focused through processes that Glenn's described to make sure we get set up properly at every level, it all fits properly, we minimise the overlap and the duplication, but we also build something that's more rules-based, so everybody's incentivised to keep this in check and it doesn't grow and drift again. And there's more safeguards now. One of the problems from that period was people would be made redundant and then immediately get another job somewhere in the NHS. There's protection against that now. That can't happen anymore because of the redundancy rules, etc. So none of us can guarantee that we'll keep a hold of this forever. I think there's a really strong will to do that, and I think this process so far, and the way again Glenn has described, has been really well executed actually in a pretty difficult process, pretty complex process.